The cold and unforgiving world of Tarkov and the Norvinsk region has a certain way of drawing us in. The people and stories of Tarkov are fascinating, addicting, and perplexing, but in the background of it all is the setting we find ourselves in, the maps and areas that we explore and travel through. You may know these areas like the back of your hand, but for others, they may be completely new and unfamiliar. Regardless of how much time you spent in Tarkov, let's take a little time to slow down and explore the handcrafted environments that tell stories of a broken down society and where ordinary people have turned into savages in the name of survival, and where the world they once lived and thrived in has turned into the apocalypse. Reserve. Just to the south of Customs, the Federal Reserve Base is an artifact from the glory days of the former Soviet Union. Built in 1977, this military installation came equipped with all of the infrastructure needed to support a large garrison of mechanized infantry, as well as survive in the event of an all-out nuclear exchange. The base specializes in aerospace defense, but also comes equipped with a large motor pool area complete with troop carriers and armored fighting vehicles, as well as a single T-90 main battle tank. We start our journey at the train yard. While the base was still in operation, this massive structure served as a loading and unloading bay, as well as a maintenance area for trains that brought supplies and fresh troops in from the outside. Just outside to the south, fuel delivered by rail would be offloaded into large storage tanks. And just to the north, new troops would report to their barracks for the first time. As soon as order began to break down in Tarkov, the Russian military in the region was immediately mobilized, and massive amounts of cargo was shipped into this base to prepare for what was to come. To the east lies the main cargo area, where huge quantities of supplies were offloaded as quickly as possible. After a few skirmishes with USEC, and after being tricked into openly engaging UN forces, the Kremlin quickly ordered that all Russian Federation troops stand down, and rather than actively engage in hostilities, to hold a perimeter around Tarkov, while the newly formed PMC group named Bear moved in to neutralize USEC and the criminals in the area. Deploying anti-air armored vehicles to control the airspace around the reserve base, as well as several BMP armored vehicles positioned in a hull-down state to observe the perimeter, it seemed like trying to overtake this military installation would be suicide, but it wouldn't be long until the fight came to them. At some point, the reserve base was attacked with heavy weapons and mortars. Evidence of mortar shelling can be found everywhere, from the destroyed roofs at the train yard to scorch marks on buildings and concrete. With the attackers taking cover in nearby apartment buildings, the troops at the reserve base did their best to repel the attacks, but with accurate mortar fire silencing gun emplacements and preventing troop movement and anti-tank rocket fire increasing, the battle finally turned in favor of the attackers when a T-90 main battle tank was knocked out on the eastern edge of the base. With defenses down in this area and small breaches in the fence apparent, the attackers began to flood into the area, and a full retreat was ordered by the commanding officer of the base. It was from this attack that the military-trained professionals, believed to be former PMCs, were named Raiders. Over time, locals and criminals would learn that the man in charge of these groups was a former Russian Marine, a massive, towering man with years of combat experience that simply goes by the name Gluhkar. The base today lies in ruins. Evidence of the massive assault can be found everywhere. Over time, local criminals, or scavs, timidly moved into the base. At first, they were not tolerated, but as their desperation grew and their numbers increased, Gluhkar and his raiders shifted their demeanor from kill on sight to don't get too close. On the southeastern side, a group of tall buildings served as the main instructional component for troops at the reserve base. The northernmost building, designated Black Bishop, bore the brunt of the assault on the reserve base. Anti-tank weapons have blown out sections of walls where classrooms once were, and bullet impacts and bloodstains tells the story of the brave men who endured overwhelming fire from the raiders. Moving south, injured soldiers were taken to a makeshift infirmary in another barracks and classroom area designated Black Pawn, but it was likely here where the fate of the reserve base was sealed. Gluhkar and his men, knowing that they needed to secure a tactical advantage in order to infiltrate the base during their assault, most likely flanked around towards the mountain where a small gap in the fence was found. With Gluhkar and his men now inside the perimeter of the base, he began the slow and methodical process of clearing out anyone who remained in these buildings before moving on to the command structure, designated Queen. Before doing so, a large Mi-26 transport helicopter had landed in the middle formation and training grounds. Loading up sensitive Terra Group equipment and high-ranking officers for emergency evacuation, Gluhkar and his raiders got to them first. Over time, PMCs and scavs have ravaged the base for most of its supplies, but there's still a huge quantity left to discover. And recently, raiders who have forced local scavs to dig out sections of underground tunnel have uncovered a sprawling hermetic bunker that was originally designed to allow the base to maintain communications in the event of a nuclear attack, simply named D2. This bunker also contains a secret exit outside of the base, possibly leading to the shoreline. With a breakdown in local law enforcement and firefights erupting on street corners, without a doubt there was still a large portion of the population that still had faith that order could be restored in the Tarkov region. But once the reserve military base fell, so too did the hopes that any return to normalcy would be coming to Tarkov. The reserve base today is one of the most hotly fought over pieces of real estate in the Tarkov region. It's become clear that some Russian military officials here, or possibly Gluhkar himself, have colluded with the Terra Group Corporation. What began as USEC attempting to secure the base back from Gluhkar and his men has now become a dire situation where abandoned Bear and USEC operatives now use this base as a resupply depot in their efforts to escape from Tarkov. It does not matter what patch or insignia you wear on your shoulder, or if you're just a lowly scav trying to survive. If you choose to go to the reserve base, it's best you keep your wits about you, because this forsaken land has truly become the apocalypse.